4, verses 8 and following. We are picking up right where y'all left off last week. Today we're going to be looking at God's hand in meeting others' needs and looking specifically at how God blesses us as we serve others. But, as we begin, none of us are where we're at today without the help and support of others, right? I mean, even as we think about moms, we think about Mother's Day, we can be so thankful for our parents and other people who have helped support us when we were children, as well as those who have helped us, in our adult lives. Just as you're just thinking right now, just take just a moment and just kind of just go through and just think about all the people that have helped you, how God has used other people in your life to bring you to where you are today. Whether that, especially as that relates to your spiritual journey, as your spiritual growth, as you've developed in your relationship with the Lord, all those types of ways. And today we're going to look at a story that shows that there is joy and blessing that come as we let God work through us for the sake of others. And so, in addition to that list, my challenge for you is when you think back on all the people that have helped get you to where you are today, I'd like for you to make another list. Who am I investing in? Who am I helping today? Because, see, we don't want to just be recipients, right? We want to be recipients, but we also need to be those that are serving and passing that on, to others. And so that's kind of what we're going to be looking at today, is that God, just as God used all those people in your life, He wants to use you in someone else's life. And so that's kind of what we're going to see today. Well, kind of the setting is just as abruptly as that first miracle that you guys studied last week with the oil and all of that ends. And it was a very short, very simply written, brief, only 8-verse lesson that you guys looked at last week. Well, this one, as soon as that one ends, we just quickly move right into this next one. And part of the reason for that is what we're seeing here is, remember, we're still transitioning from Elijah to Elisha. And everyone knew that Elijah was the man of God, right? And so now with these back-to-back quick miracles, part of the reason for that is we're starting to see that these things are happening. God's at work in this way to establish that Elisha is now that voice, that Elisha is now that man of God on the scene that is working in both Israel and Judah and another couple other neighboring countries there as well, serving as prophet for them. But so that one kind of ends. We jump right into this one, and it's all kind of building him up and showing us that he is the man of God. Now this lesson is a little bit longer, and it's almost broke up into 3 scenes. There's the first scene, there's a second scene, and there's a third scene. And but the purpose is the same as that first miracle. It's just to establish the authenticity, I guess you would say, of Elisha as a worthy successor to Elijah and as a man of God. And so we're going to look at, and I told you a couple weeks ago, one of the things that I love about Elisha and Elisha's ministry is the fact that a lot of these things that Elisha does is he's actually, the miracles that he performs, I mean, there's some of the others that are different, but I love the ones where he goes into somebody's life and he meets a need. You know what I mean? It's very much human need. It's very relational, and we're going to see that happen again today in this story of the Shunammite woman, as she's going to receive 2 blessings from Elisha, but Elisha is also a recipient of blessing from her. And so both the Shunammite woman and Elisha are both examples of how God blesses us as we serve. So with that said, let's get into the passage. Somebody read 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 8 through 10.
One day Elijah went to Shunammite. A prominent woman who lived there persuaded him to eat some food. So whenever he passed by, he stopped there to eat. She then said to her husband, I know that the one who often passes by here is a holy man of God. So let's make a small, walled-in upper room and put a bed, a table, a chair, a lamp there for him. Whenever he comes, he can stay there.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. So as we pick up here, just a couple of things. Just what do you know about this woman? Just from this passage, what do you know about her?
She sees needs and meets them.
Okay, she sees needs and she meets them, right? And part of that, what is maybe a gift that she has? What is maybe a spiritual gift that she may have? We don't oftentimes think of spiritual gifts as Old Testament things. We think of it as a New Testament idea. But what kind of spiritual gift might she have?
Hospitality.
Yeah, hospitality, serving, service, all those types of things, right? And so she looks for opportunities to serve, and we see this hospitable spirit, right? So we don't know much about her though, right? What's her name? What's her husband's name? What's the boy's name? We don't get that information, do we? All we get is where she's from, right? Why is she left without a name?
Because it's not important who the person is, it's what they do.
Okay. All right. I think that's true. What else? That's true. Yeah, but we're just expounding,
Yeah.
right? Can I throw out another thought? I think you're right on, Greg. But I also think she's unnamed because she's common. I think she's left unnamed intentionally so that you can put your name in there. I think she's left unnamed so that we don't, elevate, you know what I mean? We don't, go too high, you know what I mean? It's just she's just an ordinary person. Now, she's prominent, right? What does prominent mean for them in that day and time?
Well, they had some money.
Maybe, yeah, they got a little bit of money. Maybe not wealthy, but they've got some means, right? Obviously, they've got a home and a way that they're going to be able to build on. You know what I mean? They're going to build a special room for Elisha, so they got a little bit of that. What's the other part of it, though? I think the other part of it is that they're respected. Okay, I think that's probably even has more meaning here, is that they're respected in their community. That maybe they have a little bit of means, but maybe not wealthy. But prominent just means that a person of influence, right? Someone that was respected in the community, a leader in the community, that type of thing.
I think there's another thing in there that's not really. There's a couple that are living below their means.
Okay.
Because they have extra. They have money to be able to do these other things.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And I think also, another thing that we kind of we don't necessarily connect in our day and culture to their day and culture was, we're not told, okay, so I'm taking a leap here. But I think she was probably a follower. You know what I mean? I think that she was probably maybe a godly person because, we take hospitality for granted, right? If somebody's hospitable to us today, we just oh, well, that was nice, right? or that was nice of them, to invite us over or to do something, or you know what I mean, that type of thing. But in that day and culture, you know there were laws about hospitality in the Old Testament. There are laws in Leviticus about showing hospitality, and that you had to show, according to the law, if a stranger came to your town, you had to take care of them, according to the law. If someone was passing through, you had to give assistance. And if you weren't following Levitical law. Because hospitality was necessary in that day and time. Because as you're traveling through, there isn't a Chick-fil-A on every corner. Right? There are no, goodness gracious, are they ever going to stop building hotels in St. Joe? Right? I mean, they're just like building them and building them and building them. I'm like, my goodness, do we really need this many hotels? And then I went to go book a room for a guy that's coming in to start a job tomorrow, and you know what? There ain't no hotels open. Over the weekend, they're like booked. And I'm like, I don't know what they're all doing here, but I'm glad they're here. Come back again, type of thing. But they're pretty full over the weekends. And but now you can get a room easy. But anyway, side point. But hospitality was a big thing. It was necessary. And so here we've got this woman who is a prominent woman. They've got a little bit of means, but they're living beneath their means in order that they can be able to be a blessing to others. And she sees an opportunity, right? And at first, I love how, you kind of hop over this, but she persuades Elisha to come and eat some food, right? And then this kind of happens again and again and again, right? Where we see it's not like a one-time occurrence. It's like she has given him a standing invitation. Hey, every time you pass through my town, I expect you to stop by my house, right? I expect you to come by because I want to help. I want to provide for you. And then it's in the course of that, and in the course of that building more of a relationship with Elisha, that we come to verse 9, and you kind of get this idea that she begins to come to have a greater awareness about who Elisha is, right? Because she says to her husband in verse 9, I know that the one who often passes by here is a holy man of God. And so we need to step up our game, right? We've been giving him a meal. We've been having him over for dinner every time he comes through. But let's do something more. Let's do something more for him. And so she sees him as somebody that's worthy of her respect and worthy of her support. And she wants to be a blessing to him. And so she says to her husband, hey, let's make a small walled-in upper room. Let's put a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp there for him. And whenever he comes, he can stay there. And so basically she's just suggesting that, hey, since he's passing by here all the time, let's just make a permanent spot for him, right? Let's just make a permanent provision for him. And we're kind of going to set it all up, and it just can be like his space, right? And so what I love about that is one opportunity led to another opportunity, right? Started out as a small thing that grew into something more, right? And I just kind of love that about that. They kind of moved from just providing a meal to providing lodging, and so as they see additional opportunity, they made plans to seize it. Have you ever thought of something good to do, but you didn't do it? Me too. That happens to me way too often. Way too often, I don't get a lot of good thoughts, but every now and then I get a good thought, and I'm like, oh man, I ought to do that. But there's way too often that I never get around to doing it. Or I drag my feet because I'm unsure, right? And then what happens?
You busy, do something else.
The opportunity passes, right? That opportunity that I thought, oh, you know what, I ought to do that. But then I don't. And then the next thing you know, the next time oh man, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? And so I guess one of the things I just kind of want to challenge all of us with this first section here is just don't let opportunities pass by, because you don't know what they might lead to. And don't just, don't just see the opportunity, but seize that opportunity. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Don't, be like this woman. It's almost, I kind of like how she talks to her husband about this. And some of you husbands can relate to this. This really wasn't a question. Hey, do you think it would be a good idea to build a little extra space, a little room for him? No, right? She kind of sounds like the Proverbs 31 woman, right? She's like, hey, this is what we're doing. Let's get on, get on it, right?
I like how she was specific on the roof, walls.
Yeah. Which is a very good thing we got to be kind of pretty specific, right? For us men sometimes, right? But don't just see those opportunities, seize those opportunities. Take a leap, right? Take that step of faith. I love the quote where it says, vision must be followed by the venture. When God gives you a vision for something, He says, hey, here's an opportunity. Well, that wasn't just a good thought. He intends for you to follow through and do something with that. And so, vision must be followed by the venture. It's not enough just to see up the stairs. You got to go up them, right? So do it. Take that step and seize that opportunity during the life of that opportunity, or it will just simply pass by and you'll have regret later wondering, man, what could have happened? What would have happened? Just think about what this woman's like. What would she have missed out on? If she had just went one day and said, oh, yeah, I'm busy. I've got a lot going on. I'm prominent, which means she probably got a lot of stuff going on, and you kind of can see a little bit just about the person that she is, that she's kind of focused, right? Kind of a get it done kind of person, right? But she made time to be hospitable and to serve the man of God as he is passing through her area. And the blessing that's going to come to our life from that is a big deal. And so, how are you being a blessing to somebody today? Anybody else have anything else they want to mention about that? Any other thoughts on that part of it? Love that part of it. It's probably my favorite part of the whole story. Even the story gets really good. I love this part. You know what I mean? Because God wants to use you. I don't know that God's ever going to use me to bring somebody back from the dead. But I can provide a meal. I can provide lodging. I can do a lot of other things, much like this woman did. All right, let's read verses 11 through 17.
So he asked, then what should be done for her? Gehazi answered, well, she has no son, and her husband is old. Call her, Elisha said. So Gehazi called her, and she stood in the doorway.
Oh, wait a minute. You went too far. You're another one, right?
Oh,
Is that the right one?
That's the right one.
We didn't have 11 in our book.
Oh, you don't have it in your book?
14.
No, we have 14 through 17.
Oh, well, isn't that something?
I know, I don't know why they skipped it. I was reading it off his phone, so I'm like, why did they skip that one?
Okay, yeah, because that's not what's printed in my deal. I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Just pick right up and go again. I apologize.
that's okay. So he asked, and what should be done for her? Gehazi answered, well, she has no son, and her husband is old. Call her, Elisha said. So Gehazi called her, and she stood in the doorway. Elisha said, at this time next year you will have a son in your arms. Then she said, no, my lord, man of God, do not lie to your servant. The woman conceived and gave birth to a son at the same time the following year, as Elisha had promised her.
Okay, so she seizes this opportunity. She's serving Elisha, providing not only meals for him now he's got his own room, his own bedroom, his own place to come and stay every time that he comes through town. And so, as the occasion comes, as he's accustomed to doing while he's in their town, he takes advantage of this gracious invitation to visit with a woman and her husband. And you know, our text doesn't record it, and I know some of you don't like it when I do this, but I do it anyway. Nothing is ever recorded. We don't get any of the little interaction that happens whenever they show him the room. I kind of wish that was in there. I would have loved to see what his reaction is like whenever he comes back the next time and like, oh, here's your room. You know what I mean? And how that may have went and how gracious his response might have been. But he comes to the house and he stops by his upstairs room to lay down. And then for the first time we learn that he has an attendant. Who's going to do some good things in this story. He's not going to be the best character and certainly not worthy of following in Elisha. We're going to find out later on. But coming back to this story. Elisha says, look, you've gone to all this trouble for us, right? You've taken all this. You've done all of this. He simply asks her, he says, what can we do for you? Okay? And then he even gives out a suggestion. Can we speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army? All of that is... So there's a couple things. What can we do for you? We'll come back to that, I guess. Let's start the other place. What does he mean by can we speak on your behalf to the king or the commander of the army? I think the thing that we need to understand in there is that her husband is old and they have no children. Specifically, they have no son. And so I think what Elisha's saying here is that he's like, hey, is there any kind of intervention, any kind of protection that we can help offer you? You know, our people, he has some influence. He meets with kings. He's already done that. And maybe... maybe he's kind of looking out for her hey, because see, in that day and culture, to not have children was a big thing, right? And especially not to have a son is a big thing, because children are a blessing from the Lord and all of that. But there's no 401ks, there's no pensions, there's no Social Security, there's no retirement plans, right? And so your only means of support as you age was your children. And especially sons, firstborn sons, were supposed to take care of their parents moving forward. Right? And the reason for that is whenever a son got married, the family grew. Right? Because the son continues to live with the family. He brings his wife into the family. And then their children, and the family continues to grow. Whenever you have daughters, Dustin, the family actually, in that day culture, subtracted. You lost because she goes to live with that other family, right? And so it was a big deal. And so he's like saying, hey, what can we do to help for the future? What can we do to help look out for you, going forward? And how does she answer? Whenever he says, what can I do for you? What's her response? What's she say? Well, this isn't a hard question. All I got to do is read the text back to me, guys.
The family takes care of her.
Yeah, she basically says, I'm good. I don't need anything, right? And she's saying, I'm living among my own people, right? I've got, apparently she's got family. She may not have immediate family, but she's got extended family. And I think the bigger thing is there's this picture of, overall, I think she's content. She's content. She's resigned, at least, to her lot in life, saying, I'm okay. I'll be able to take care of myself. I really don't need anything else. And so then Elisha says to his servant, what should be done for her? And obviously this isn't new information, but his servant says, well, she has no son, and her husband is old. It's not new information. And a lot of times, sometimes we don't have new information, but sometimes we just need somebody to tell us something, to make something click. You know what I mean? To make something like, oh, yeah. And so Elisha says, well, call her. So she comes and she stands in the doorway. And it's kind of funny that she was talking to her through his servant, and now she's at the doorway. But anyway, I don't know what all that means necessarily. But now Elisha addresses her directly with this amazing promise, and he says, at this time next year you will have a son in your arms. Does that sound familiar? Kind of a theme, right? Kind of a theme that we have through the scriptures, right? A childless couple endure the shame and the pain of not having a child, or specifically not having a son. And that also, you got to kind of remember, guys, that during that day in that culture, this was not just a hard thing for all the reasons that I mentioned about like going forward and the sons taking care of them and all of that. But a lot of people in that day and time, if you didn't have children or if you were barren, they thought it was because you had done something, and that you were cursed, or that God was punishing you in some way for sin. It was oftentimes so much so that women that weren't able to have children would literally be like ostracized. As I was studying for this and going through this, I read a deal that was talking about, you remember the woman at the well in John chapter 4? And how it talks about, Jesus says, well, the man that you're living with isn't your husband, and you've had 4 other husbands before that. And oftentimes, what do we think about her? Well, we just kind of think that she just was not a really good woman, right? Very questionable reputation. But what if she was just barren? It's possible that she had had 4 husbands that had turned her out. And it's possible that she went to the well at the middle of the day, not because she was ashamed because of her lifestyle, but because she was that ostracized from society. Okay? And so anyway, just throwing that out there, because that's how harsh people looked at people that didn't, women especially, that didn't have children. And so, this is a familiar story, a familiar pattern that we see in Scripture where God works in the lives of people, and especially older couples that weren't able to conceive. We've got Abraham and Sarah, we've got Elkanah and Hannah, we've got Moana and his wife in the Old Testament, and then in the New Testament we've got Zechariah and Elizabeth. All similar things, all similar stories. And this Shunammite woman responds in the same way that all of them did. Right? With just this skepticism and a little bit of disbelief, and she says, no, my Lord, man of God, please don't lie to me. Right? Now, obviously, I don't think she thinks that. She's not accusing him of trying to deceive her in any way, right? I think she's just saying, hey, this is very sensitive. Right? Oh, please don't get my hopes up. Right? You know what I mean? I can almost imagine her being like, please, I've had my hopes up. I can't take another one. I can't take another disappointment or anything like that. And I think for her, it's a very sensitive issue, and and she's just like, don't give me hope that can't be fulfilled, right? And I love how I love how the scripture just jumps forward a year, right? We just go from her going, oh, please don't tell me, don't give me this hope, and I just can't handle being disappointed again. And then all of a sudden, the woman conceived and gave birth to a son the same time the next year, just as Elijah promised, right? I just love that. It's like, oh no, and then boom, it happened, right? And so this is kind of the end of scene 1, and it's a scene of surprises, right? So Elisha's blessed with lodging and generosity, and she's not done any of this out of hoping to get anything from her. In fact, whenever he offers to give her something, she's like, I'm good. I don't need anything. I'm content. I'm happy with my lot in life. All of those types of things. But Elisha wants to return a blessing to her. And then we get this second surprise, this promise of the birth of a son. And to the woman's delight, this promise is fulfilled. So, and all of this is the outcome, both the promise and the outcome are the result of God at work in their lives. So God just moves and reacts in an amazing way. So let's back up a second. What if she hadn't seized the original opportunity? How different would her life have been? Her life would have been good, right? All indications are her life was fine. She even says so. But by a simple act of service and hospitality that led to another opportunity, that led to a deeper relationship with Elisha, so much so that he's like, I'm going to bless you. I just want to bless you, right? And this is the result. Okay? All right. We're going to skip. So scene 2 is not recorded in our text. It's verses 18 through 31. I said it's 3 scenes. First scene, second scene, third scene. We're going to kind of skip over scene 2, but it's crucial to understanding the rest. So basically the little boy grows. He's old enough now at this point in time. They've got this continuing relationship that's going on. But he's old enough at this time that his father was old before. Now he's even older, but he's still not too old to go out and work in the fields. Little boy is out working in the field with his father, and apparently develops headache, becomes very, very sick. We probably think that, like, the little boy's probably 8, you know what I mean, elementary age school, old enough to go out and work with dad, but still small enough that he can be carried. Even his mother, at the end of the story, is going to carry him. So, you know what I mean? That's what we're talking about. Old enough to go out and work, old enough to go out and help, but still small enough to be carried. And the little boy is going to die. And his mother is going to take him into Elisha's room. She's going to lay him on Elisha's bed, and then she is going to ask her husband for a donkey so that she can go and travel and go and see Elisha and go and see the man of God. She gets there, and Elisha leaves and goes with her, and that's where we're going to pick up the story back in the house. So somebody read verses, if we've got it right in the quarterly, verses 32 through 37.
When Elijah got to the house, he discovered the boy lying dead on his bed. So he went in, closed the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. Then he went up and lay on the boy. He put mouth to mouth, eye to eye, hand to hand. While he bent down over him, the boy's flesh became warm. Elijah got up, went into the house, and paced back and forth. Then he went up and bent down over him again. The boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Elijah called Gehazi and said, "Call the Shemite woman." He called her, and she came. Then Elijah said, "Pick up your son." She came and fell at his feet and bowed down to the ground. She picked up her son and laughed.
All right. So, where we pick up, he's come back. He goes into the house, and the little boy is dead. We don't know exactly how much time passed, you know what I mean, in there, but we know it was enough of a journey that she required a donkey to go make the journey, and it took some time, going back and forth. But Elijah gets into the house, or gets into the room, and he discovers the boy laying there and he's dead. He's going to bring the boy back to life. How is he going to do that? How is this boy brought back to life?
He lays his full body on him. Eye to eye, face to mouth, mouth to face.
Why does he do that? What would prompt him to do such a thing? Because it's what Elijah did. You know that? Go back and look at 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 7 through 24. How does Elijah bring how does Elijah bring another one back to life? He does the same exact thing. And so he's following the pattern of his teacher. He's following the pattern of his mentor, right? But don't skip. So what did he do? Did he give him mouth to mouth? Did he just warm up his body by laying on top of him? It kind of suggests a little bit that warmth, heat came back to the boy's body, right? As he laid there on him, right? And all of that. But is that what happened here? Do we simply have mouth to mouth, like resuscitation? Nah. That's not what's going on here, right? What's the most important thing Elisha did? He prayed. He prayed. Before he does anything, what's he do? He prays to the Lord. And he asks God to intervene. He basically says, Lord, I am in way over my depth here. I don't know what to do. And if you don't do something, I ain't no good. Right? Without you, I can do nothing. And so he prays to the Lord, just as you would expect him to do. Because he knew he couldn't do anything. And God was going to have to be involved. And so then he begins to follow the pattern that he'd seen Elijah do. And he had seen God work mightily through Elijah to perform improbable and impossible miracles before. And so that's what he does. But then, so some things start to happen, but the boy's still not alive. And he gets up and he goes out and he's pacing around. What do you suppose he's doing the whole time he's out there pacing? Praying. God, I need you. God, we need you. It's going to take you to do something here, right? And he goes back in, bends down over the boy again, and now the boy sneezes 7 times and opens his eyes. Guys, I don't know what the laying down on top of him. I don't know about the breathe. I don't know. I don't know why he sneezed 7 times. I don't know why I sneeze in 3s. Anybody else? Anybody else have like a routine where you sneeze a certain way?
5 times.
Huh?
5 times.
Always 5 times. With me, it's almost always 3. I hardly ever sneeze once, right? It's always, I sneeze, and then I'll sneeze again, and then maybe a little bit, and then I'm going to sneeze again before I'm finally done. But anyway, some of y'all have sneezing fits like we do. Some of you don't. But anyway, I don't think there's anything to it. I think it's just recorded. Hey, that's what happened. That's what's going on here. I think the truth of the matter is that that just God was at work. God brought this boy back to life. And God does the impossible. God does the improbable. And so Elisha says to his servant, he says, hey, go get the woman. And he brings him in and says, pick up your son. She comes, she falls at Elisha's feet, and she bows down to the ground. And then she picks up her son and carries him out of the room and left. And that's the end of scene 3. That's the end of the story. What is the miracle in this story intended to convey? What are we supposed to take from this? Not the whole thing, because there's elements that are different. But what are we just supposed to take from the miracle of the boy being brought back to life? What are we supposed to take from that?
To me, it seemed like that God was just in the whole thing. I mean, it was everything was all about God.
Yeah.
And she was a follower, and he was a follower, and they gave her something special, and Then they took it away and gave it back,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And Greg, what I think the thing that you're saying, there's just this picture of trust, right? I mean, there's trust. There's a trust in God's power, as you know. Yeah, I think what you're saying is God gave. She realized it was a real gift from God. What would have been you? Just stop and think for a minute. What would have been your reaction? I tell you what, I'm really challenged by this. Just picture this scene. You send your little boy out into the field, right? Kind of reminds me of a story in my family. My Uncle Max one time fell off a tractor and the tractor ran over him. My grandpa was driving the tractor ran over my Uncle Max. It actually ran right over his head. Okay? Picked Uncle Max up, took him into the house. He was having seizures, convulsing, all that kind of stuff. Back in that time, and not that long ago, there wasn't much they could do for him. But pray. You know what? My Uncle Max came around. And he came out of it. And he was a little stunted. They had to put him back a year in school. So he ended up in his younger brother's class. Because he went on to live a full, normal, healthy life, right? And that's just a little weird story. I don't know why I even threw that in there. But trust in God. And I think that's what you see here. If I'm that Shunammite woman, and it's funny because the husband does it, and she sends him back with a servant, and she's holding him, she's caring for him, and we don't know how much time passes, but the boy dies. I don't know what my reaction would have been. I can imagine. But I don't know. But I love her faith and her trust in God. She simply goes and lays the boy on the bed in Elisha's room and goes to the man of God. Who would be your first call? She goes to the man of God. The man of God comes, and what's he do? He makes another call. Right? He calls 911. The good kind of 911. And prays for help. And so we just have this beautiful picture of trust. You know, Greg, that would have been, I mean, and especially here on Mother's Day, for any mom, that would have been just a heartbreaking, devastating moment. Right? And I'm sure there's probably maybe some in the room that know that. Right? Know that feeling. That her trust in God, her trust in God's power, she's trusting in God with an expectation that what?
Everything's going to be all right.
That God is going to do something. Right? And I love that, Chad. I love that she's like, her first thing, I'm going to go to God. I'm going to go to the man of God. And I'm going to trust that God's going to do something. She's already seen God do the miraculous in her life once before. She's conceived. She was barren and she's conceived. And I love that. Leanne, what's our definition of faith?
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
In the book, it's got this thing, and this just speaks to me. I've had 2 kids that, we should have died, and God gave us miracles, but we don't ever know when He's going to give us that miracle.
Right.
And when Trevor was hit by the drunk driver, and he had a stroke like 7 hours into it, and my 21-year-old son was there, and I said to Joe, Joe, if God takes him, it's God's will. Mm-hmm. God knows. We do not know. Mm-hmm. We don't have any choice in this. And I'm not always, I just would pray to God every time I have a tragedy, I would be like that, but I'm not. But in here it says, because of the Shunammite woman's service to Elisha, God blessed her. The mystery of the miraculous will always stay with our Heavenly Father. we can always count, we can't always count on a miracle. We don't know.
Right.
What we can count on is God's goodness to bless us when we meet the needs of others.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just,
Yeah, and that's what, she trusts that everything's going to be okay. One way or the other, you know what I mean? But to run to God first, that's the place to run to, right? And that's when we see the miraculous. And that's when we see the miraculous happen. So the woman acted in faith, and faith is what? Believing things so when it's not so in order for it to be so because it is so. Right? She believed that God could do something. Whether he would or not, she didn't know. But she was willing to trust him. Sometimes, I don't know if I'd even been willing to ask. I'm afraid my expectation when I've been so mad, I'd be so heartbroken, I'd be so distraught. And we see this in people. They get angry. They get bitter. And they don't run to God, but they blame God. Right? I love this picture of her. And then Elisha acts in faith, and God uses him in a mighty way to meet the needs of this mother, father, and child. And it reminds us that, he may use us as well. And the blessings that he gives us, he intends us to use to bless others. I just love this story. This story is just fascinating to me on so many levels, right? The woman gave a blessing, received a blessing. Elisha received a blessing, gave a blessing. Right? And in both instances, the inspiration to act was just the product of seizing opportunities. Right? She saw an opportunity, she seized it. Elisha saw an opportunity to do something in her life, and he seized it. And God was glorified in all of it. Okay? So, who has helped get you to where you are today? And who are you helping? As a people of faith, it is our desire to place ourselves in the hand of God so that he may work in and through us to bless others and to bring glory to his name. And so I just want to kind of encourage you with that. And then the other, one last thing, and I know I'm over, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to get to talk to you next week. So, and I didn't get to talk to you last week. Faith is believing things so when it's not so in order for it to be so because it is so. Is your faith a passive profession? Oh, I've made a profession of faith. I've placed my faith in Jesus Christ. Or is it an active expression in your life? Where you are placing yourself in the hand of God and saying, God, use me. God, work through me to bless others. Could you make that your prayer today? God, work through me to bless others. And see what opportunities he may open up for you. Or is it just a passive thing for you? That's just part, oh yeah, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. Or is it something that's actively being expressed in your life on a daily basis? Let's seek to do that. All right? All right, thank you guys so much. Remember, next Sunday morning we will meet in the sanctuary to hear all about the recent trip to Florida with Christian Challenge and other opportunities. And then we'll be back here the following week.